Hello, welcome to Bitcoin Math. My name is Shane, and today we're going to cover the home equity to Bitcoin calculator. The big idea here is, well, what does it look like if I wanted to convert some of my home equity into Bitcoin? And oftentimes people ask me, well, could I just get a HELOC, or how do I get a loan? I can't afford a monthly payment, but I have a lot of home equity. What are the solutions out there? That's why we've partnered with Horizon. Horizon offers this type of service. They have already proven themselves with a best-in-class multi-signature Bitcoin wallet. If you're familiar with Thea, it's the same guys that are behind that product who have now launched and are supporting Horizon to make it easy for people to convert some of their home equity to Bitcoin without taking on a monthly payment, and ultimately just splitting some of the home equity value with the lender. But so the big idea here is there is roughly 35, 37 trillion dollars across the United States sitting in home equity. And I get people asking me all the time, hey, how could I convert my home equity into Bitcoin without taking on a monthly payment? And Horizon is the answer to that question, but this calculator will help you see, well, what does that look like for me depending on how much equity I have and what the Bitcoin price does and how the lender's terms and rates and structures and fees, what that looks like in terms of what my payoff is over a specified period of time. So there's lots of different inputs here, and I encourage you to play around with all of them so you can see directionally, well, what would the return be if these variables were to play out in the way that you configure. Now, one thing to note is that Horizon is not available in all jurisdictions. Check out their website. There's a link in the description below. There's also a link here on our page and on our education page. So check that out or reach out if you have questions. And their loans only start if you have at least 50% equity in your home, meaning if you have $1 million property that's worth $1 million, but you owe more than $500,000 on the mortgage, you might not qualify. All right. So the calculator inputs are pretty straightforward here. What's your current home value? I'm going to go ahead and use that $1 million example. And let's go ahead and say we've got $300,000 in principal remaining. So what you'll see here is that the total equity is going to produce itself down here, right? Current home value minus your remaining principal, that's your total equity. The term, meaning what loan term do you want to model? Different loan term lengths are going to dictate what the loan payoff is because of the appreciation of the home and the fact that you are splitting some of that equity with the ultimate lender. So the longer that you have a loan and the more your house appreciates, the more nominal dollars you might be paying them as their to satisfy their share of your home equity. But at the same time, that also means your Bitcoin is further appreciating. So the math tends to even out over longer terms if you are bullish on what Bitcoin is going to do. If you are not bullish on what Bitcoin is going to do, this probably isn't a great solution for you. So I'm going to go ahead and say 10-year term. And then what do I think my home is going to appreciate each year on average? This is going to vary by region. Some see 2, 3, 4% per year. Others see 5, 6, 7. But go ahead and key in whatever metric makes sense for you. For simplicity, I'm going to go ahead and say 5%. Now, the last determining input is going to be the Bitcoin compound annual growth rate percentage that we will see throughout this term specified. So for 10 years, I'm going to go ahead and model Saylor base case 29%. Okay. Now, what you're going to see is a couple of data points presented up top. This is really the summary, the difference between the Bitcoin and the status quo scenario. And then you're going to see the data outputs down below, which I'm going to go ahead and go through here. So status quo basically means you did nothing. You kept your equity in your home, you took out no loans, and you just allowed your equity to appreciate for the term specified at the average annual return rate that you've input here. So after this 10-year term, your $1 million home has appreciated nicely to about $1.7 million. Okay. When we subtract the remaining loan principal on the home, it means you've got about $1.3 million in equity. Again, really nice. Now, what would happen if you were to utilize a service provider like Horizon to borrow some of that equity and convert it into Bitcoin for this 10-year term? Well, you can see here that the LTV is about 20%. So that's typically where they are setting the limits in terms of the amount that they will lend against the value of the home. That's why we've got this $140,000, which is 20% of this $700,000 in equity. So we took a $140,000 loan and we bought Bitcoin with it at a spot price of $115,355. That got us 1.21 Bitcoin, which after 10 years, appreciating at 29% compound annual growth, produced a ending Bitcoin value of roughly $1.78 million. Okay? So when we take now the fact that we have to pay off our lender, right? We have a loan that's been accruing interest, and also we have to split some of the home equity with the lender, right? We won't get into all of the different math here because there's a couple different variables happening, so we've simplified it. But ultimately, your payoff amount after this 10-year period would be about $366,000. So when you take that 366 and you subtract it from your 1.78 in Bitcoin value, you end up with a net ROI of $1.42 million. Okay? And remember, you still have your house in this scenario as well. So you've paid off your loan, right? Your 366,501 is now paid off, and you've still got your 1.32 in home equity, but you've also got this additional 1.42, right? You've got 1.42 in remaining Bitcoin value after you've paid off your $366,000 loan. So add that to your home equity, which you now have free and clear, and you've got roughly $2.75 million in total value, right? So this produces about a 2x compared to sitting on the equity and doing nothing, okay? Now, there are lots of different variables that will change this. If you are a Bitcoin bear or you want to model more conservative growth rates for Bitcoin, you can do that, right? So if Bitcoin only grows at 21% for this 10-year term, what does this look like? Well, all of a sudden the loan payoff becomes a larger portion of the Bitcoin value and therefore produces a smaller net gain. Now, if you're a Bitcoin bear and you think we're only going to do, say, 10%, right, or less, well, what happens? All of a sudden your gain gets negative, right? And so that's why it's important to come in and actually model some of these numbers and see, well, what does it look like based on my projections for Bitcoin? Or what if I only want to do this for a 5-year term, right? Because the fewer number of years means the fewer opportunities for Bitcoin to grow at the compound annual growth rate specified, which means you've got less time for your Bitcoin investment to grow, and therefore the loan payoff is going to be a larger portion of that. Okay. So that's really how this calculator works. Lots of different inputs, lots of different things that you can model to see what this looks like for you based on your home value, based on your remaining principal, and based on your outlook for what Bitcoin's going to do over the next 1 to 30 years. This model will produce a directionally accurate output based on what Horizon's Bitcoin to home equity loans look like for people that qualify for this product. So again, the Horizon calculator can be found using the link below. You can also access it from our page here. Or if you have questions, feel free to reach out, shoot us a note, let us know how we can help. Happy to get you connected with the guys over there or answer questions as we're able. If you like this video and you want to see more content like this, like and subscribe to our channel. And if you don't like it, let us know why. Let us know how we can make this better. We're always looking for ways to improve. Much appreciated, and we'll see you on the next one.